Welcome to Ladies Who Launch, not your average business podcast. Dropping every other Wednesday, Alyssa and Dakota are two successful and opinionated marketing entrepreneurs engaging in insightful conversations with industry thought leaders, as well as casual conversations surrounding our lives as entrepreneurs.
Welcome back to another episode of Ladies Who Launch on this very sort of cloudy and dreary Thursday in May, which I guess is typical for May in Calgary. But I am personally welcoming Dakota back to the continent as she has regaled us with her photos of her trip to Portugal. And she's going to talk a little bit about that today. But we have not seen each other for like a month. So even virtually to see her this morning it's been a highlight. So welcome back.
Thanks, pal. Thank you. It's nice to see your face and be back on the cast. We haven't really recorded in a bit here. We took a little break ski. So yeah.
It's been about a month or at least a month since we recorded. So
we were on the ball before I left. I was like, oh, cool. We're covered. This is good.
Which is good because I didn't want to get the wrath of Alex, our producer, when we get behind, he gets antsy. And yeah.
Which is fair. He
runs a business. He's better with boundaries than we are. And we should be more like Alex.
We should. I feel like I'm getting better though, to be honest. Yeah. So I have some news that I was going to share with Alyssa on the podcast today, with everybody else, as well. But I think if you've been listening to our cast, you know Alyssa and I pretty intimately. For those of you who are new, well, you're going to have to just go back and listen to some episodes. But
yeah.
I think you know that you've been with Alyssa and I now for 3 years, chatting about the ups and downs of owning business, being single ladies in Canada. We've talked about Canada in general, what it's like to live here in our country and in our province. And yeah, I mean, I think that I don't really know many people who know what they want out of life, but I think I finally have realized, where I want to be and what I do want out of life. And it's been something that I've been thinking about for a while. But I needed to kind of like set some roots down in Alberta and here in Calgary and spend a lot of time nesting in the house that I have. But over the last year or so, I've been really kind of thinking about like, here I am, I'm alone in my house and it's great. I like being alone. But it's just me. And I like outside of my dog Bailey and my beautiful community here, which I know I can have from wherever I am. I don't really have like roots in Calgary that I need to nurture. And I do have a skill set that I can do anywhere. I just have to pull the trigger and manipulate it in a way that will work. So part of the reason I traveled back to Portugal, this is my second time going back there, was to sit with and feel out the idea of what it would be like to live in Europe. So I purposely booked a 3-week trip. I stayed in a condo and I very much like lived my normal life there for 3 weeks. I tried not to work because it was also vacation, but I took calls and did stuff and played with the time difference and worked with my amazing account strategist back here in Calgary. And yeah, I really felt into it. I went to yoga classes. I did the daily stuff that I would normally do. I drove, I went rock climbing and really considered it. And yeah, so I've made the decision, I don't think this is going to be surprising to Alyssa, that I'm moving to Europe.
Nice. Like tomorrow?
No, not tomorrow. Honestly, if I had $500,000 sitting in a bank account, it would be tomorrow.
Yeah.
Not tomorrow, but like a year.
Yeah.
So while I was there, I had some moments of pang for home. And I was like, I don't know if I could could I live in a condo versus my house? Cause it's pretty much condo life over there, unless you want to live far away from everything. And if you want that sort of beachy lifestyle, that's like definitely something you can have for not super expensive. But at the same time, there's a housing crisis going on in Europe, similarly to what's happening here in Alberta. And there isn't a lot of inventory. And it's really expensive actually to buy right now. And it's actually really, really, really expensive to rent. And luckily for me, I have a friend who moved over to Portugal during COVID, and she went through hell and back to stay in Portugal. And she's still struggling with a few things, but she's made a beautiful life for herself there. And she's on her way to probably getting residency. So that being said, I've been able to learn from her challenges. And so I'll come at her and I'll be like, well, what about this apartment? And she's like, no, you need that for 12 months. You got to get it secured. And oftentimes you're going to get taken and they're going to raise your rent in another 3 months. So she's just been kind of giving me the sparkly and the dirty on what it's like. And it's not easy. So that being said, this isn't going to be a quick transition. And I think what's really nice is I do love my life here. I do. And now that I'm home and in my space again, I've been much more present and thankful for what I have, in the sense that I came back to Canada with the realization that, and I'm about to get really judgmental, so I apologize, trigger warning. North Americans are fucked. Like, I'm sorry, you guys, we are fucked. We sit around complaining about our money and our houses, and we're too busy and we work too much. And I met some people in Portugal who work 5 fucking jobs, barely make rent, are supporting their family back in the Ukraine or wherever, and are the happiest human beings I've ever met in my life. They're happy because they water the grass where they're at, right? And I just feel like North Americans have created this pandemic, and I'm sorry, it's North Americans in particular, because that's what I have experience with. We've created this pandemic of woe is me. I have too much shit and too much to do. And so one of the things that I love about Europe is I'm always forced to slow the fuck down. And I'm really bad at that. So yeah, I mean, when I went rock climbing, I went and I did my very first rock climbing excursion. And there I was up on the giant wall, shitting my pants, scrambling, trying to grab at things, panicking. And my instructor was like, Dakota, we don't have a time limit. You need to trust yourself and me. Take a break. I'm sitting in the sunshine in one of my favorite places with a new person, and I'm so happy. Like, let's just take it easy. And it was kind of like that day that I was like, back home, I feel like we're rushed out of restaurants most of the time. I feel like shit has a time limit. We don't really go, like, I think the coffee example is my favorite. We don't sit down for a coffee with each other. We grab our coffee to go and we go back to work. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing though. You don't have to live in Europe to have that lifestyle. You can take those lessons and bring them back here, because I also know a lot of people back here who live that lifestyle, but not very many. And so all that to say that I had some really interesting realizations and some really interesting experiences when I was over on the other side of the pond, just in mindset of, we don't need to fucking heal our inner child, people. We just need to be. That's it. It's simple, you know? And we have this toxic wellness space that Alyssa talks about a lot, and she's right. You know, like I realized some crazy shit about that too while I was there. It was.
I love when you finally see the light. I'm just kidding.
No, it's true. I actually have another great story in a little bit here for you guys, but all that to say that what I realized, it has nothing to do with this lifestyle piece that I'm bitching about. I realized that I'm not going to be content sitting in a big house alone with a bunch of stuff. I want to really enjoy my time here for the next couple of years. And I want to start working towards, rather than working towards buying a big house that I'm going to be alone in and like finding a fucking husband, which by the way is not what I want. I've realized that too. I don't want to get married again, and I don't want kids.
That's a big one. I'm not going to insert myself into this conversation. I'm just going to politely say, I already knew this. even if you couldn't quite get there, I already knew this. So I'm glad that you've caught up.
Thank you. And it's funny, the people that love you and know you the best, they usually do. They usually know. Yeah. And like, it's like what's been holding me back for so long. I think it's a comfort thing, but I'm ready to rip that Band-Aid and be brave. So I will have to do a few things to make it, a little bit less stressful. So I've got kind of I literally have two plans mapped out in a notebook. One of them is I might buy a property here just to like have a base, just to have somewhere to land so that I'm not like coming back renting and I can, like keep some of the things that I do want to hold on to. But I think for the most part, I'm going to be selling most of my stuff. And I'm just going to be downsizing and making it simplistic. So I'm going to kind of enjoy for the next couple of years. I'm going to stay in my house and keep growing this present moment. But I think, when it comes time to leave, it'll be downsizing and making things a little more simple. And then if I have the means, I'd love to actually own property in both places at some point. I know Portugal is where I want my other base to be. However, Portugal can be a little bit challenging to get a residency. So I am considering other countries just for ease, because the end game is to be in Europe. It's to be in Europe for an extended period of time, whether it's I'm there 6 months out of the year or all the time. I want to have a home base somewhere, and then I want to be traveling around. And I think what was beautiful about my trip was I just wasn't scared anymore. It was like, well, I started a fucking business and like I made the life that I have and I'm here right now, and I paid for this trip. Like, why can't I make this happen? And I think it's just getting uncomfortable and realizing that things are different. Like, you probably won't get a car in Europe for a while. You're going to live in a condo probably. It's going to be small. It's going to be a studio or a 1-bedroom, but you make it home. You know what I mean? And it's not about that. It's about the setting that you're in and the people. And then also like living in Lisbon versus a couple of other places. Lisbon has turned into like almost Calgary, to be honest. Like everybody speaks English there. That whole wellness bullshit thing is like all over the fucking place. There's so many digital nomads there doing remote work, whatever. And it's cool. I like it. But just realizing that if I wanted to really immerse myself in Portuguese culture, I'd want to move to like a surf town. So it's figuring out, I'm currently figuring out what I want, what matters to me. First, I'm figuring out what matters to me and why I want to do this. And then going from there. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And it's been a really fun realization to like unblock myself in a way that, no, I don't need to go fucking get married again and stay in Canada. I don't have to. I can leave. And I will.
It's funny, travel is the greatest life equalizer in that way, because that's very much what I felt coming back from India. Like you can't go, I mean, India and Europe is very different, obviously, but I came back and had a huge sort of life epiphany there too. Like we had people, we were having food in people's homes that had nothing, but yet they were sharing their food with us and all of that. And they were happy. Like even those that are in like, I mean, the poverty issues are massive. Like we won't get into the whole, I mean, life is not pleasant everywhere, but yeah, I came back and I had a hard time too. And I gave away a lot of stuff then too, especially a lot of my designer bags and my designer shoes and things that I just felt like so sort of gross about. I disassociated myself with all of that. But it is, I think my greatest thing that I can share with anyone under the age of 30, well, it doesn't matter any age really, but travel. Like you need to get out of your space. And I find it, and of course, I mean, this is a place of privilege too. Like not everyone can just travel, but just get out of your space. So if you live in Calgary and you can muster a tank of gas, drive to Saskatchewan or drive to Northern Alberta, like just get out of your own space. Cause I think we get too caught up in our own daily existence And travel is the great equalizer, especially when you're able to travel to other cultures and you can immerse yourself in those cultures. But I do find it interesting because I love that you've gotten to the place where you're no longer afraid, because I think that's a lot of our hangups about just making that leap, especially as single people. It's like, oh God, I mean, it's one thing to travel alone, but it's a whole other thing to move your life. But what I find interesting is I've had the same thought for years is I don't want this, like this as we exist now, like in Calgary, in a home, in a whatever. It's not my retirement plan and never has been. And I probably could have made that leap. If I had made that leap earlier, like you're doing, I would be less feeling stuck. But the difference is in where we exist is that I have like aging parents now. And so my parents are in their 70s. And like, as we've discussed many times on this podcast, my brother is an abject tool. And so I am going to be the responsible caregiver for my parents. That's just life. And so for me at this point to think that I'm going to be able to pitch it and like go like live somewhere else for extended period of time is not realistic. However, doesn't mean that I can't go for longer periods of time. And I think there still is this idea of like, downsizing, getting rid of things, finding a place that's easier to come and go from, like an apartment style condo where you can just close the door and leave for 3 months and whatever. So it is interesting that you had the same sort of epiphany, that you realized that we literally are just trapped by our own stuff, and that's stuff, physical stuff, and in our mind stuff. And yes, during COVID, everyone got that whole digital nomad thing, and you see a bunch of 21-year-olds gallivanting around the world thinking they're like business owners because they're like doing TikToks and making money, like have at her. But like to really feel that you're making a life change is to actually become embedded in the culture. And I have always weird thoughts about, and I like that you're talking about Europe, because I see so many people that are like, oh, I'm going to go like move to Mexico or Central America or any of that. And I'm like, I don't need to be like, I'm already a settler. I don't need to go be a colonist in some other country, like, and think I'm going to like be a white savior to a second world country. I have big issues with that, with people in very rich countries thinking they're going to move and then take over, where people there can't afford anything. But yeah, there's other places to go besides colonizing colonizing third world countries. But yeah, it is interesting. Like when you go and have the purpose of quote unquote living somewhere as opposed to just visiting it as a tourist, your thoughts about life there changes, because you're not just like at an all-inclusive resort and like sitting on the beach. Like you actually have to like figure out how to go get groceries and figure out the transit system and like exist as you would. And I think it's a great equalizer for people.
The other thing too is navigating people.
Yes.
When you're visiting a country as a tourist and you're paying money, of course you're going to get treated well. Okay.
Yes.
You move to their fucking country and they're in a housing crisis and you decide you want to rent.
They don't want you there.
No.
Now,
that being said, the Portuguese people, like true Portuguese people, are people who've immigrated to Portugal, become citizens, or like have lived there for a long time. One reason I love Portugal is, and I said this repeatedly to people there, like, they are very kind there. Portuguese people, like that's their way. And I have Portuguese friends here as well that I went to high school with. Portuguese people are really kind-hearted and sweet, but it's like any country. Like if they can get an extra dollar out of you because you're unsuspecting and dumb, like they're going to, and fair enough. So yeah, I had a lot of conversations with like my Uber drivers and my servers as much as I could, some broken Portuguese that I was like trying to learn, around like, would you guys actually want an expat here? Like, how do you feel? I talked to my massage therapist. I got a massage. I talked to her. I went to different areas of the country, some that are like very low key. Nobody speaks English. I went to others that were like the rich. Like I went to Praia de Luge where Madeline McCann went missing.
Right.
And like all British expats there. And that's where I got my massage. And I was like, so what's this like? Like, do you make bank here? And she's like, no. So one thing that was surprising to me that I didn't know about and just opened my eyes was Portuguese people and people living in Portugal working just like everyday jobs, like Uber driving, delivery, washing dishes, whatever. And even people who are like, in some cases, have multiple degrees. The living wage in Portugal is 1,000 euros a month.
Mm-hmm.
And the rent, 2,000 for a one bedroom in most cases. And that's because of people like myself going there, which really upset me. And so I asked them, like, I feel bad for wanting to come here. And they were like, no, it's happening all over the world. Don't feel bad. Like, if anything, come here and do something. Do something for our economy. The problem is that, and the resounding sort of advice I've been getting is keep my income in Canada as much as I can until I've settled. And then if I can start something there, then do it. But I would really love to be able to invest in the country to offer something. I don't want to just come there and be a fucking privileged asshole. So this is what I'm kind of trying to figure out. But I did start taking Portuguese lessons. So I'm doing that twice a week in the mornings with a guy from Portugal, as sort of a first step. But there's a lot to consider, like I don't want to just go over there with $500,000 and be like, okay, let's roll. I'm sitting here in my big house. I would like to actually add value.
Yeah. I think, that's a positive way to do it. Cause I do know that, the influx of rich Americans and rich Canadians moving to these countries is gross.
Fair enough. That's what you work towards, and like, whatever. Like, I guess if I had $1 million sitting in the bank, like just to get me there quicker and like easier, sure.
It's not so much,
but I'd also want to maybe like start a company.
Well, I think that's where I sort of draw the line. It's like, I have no problem. Well, aside from like going to like third world countries and setting up buying a big house there, or whatever, but like going to Europe and stuff, is one thing. But if you're not going there to contribute to the country or to contribute to the place that you live, then you shouldn't go. Because if you're going to go and, like somebody, like, I don't know, be a TikTok star, just for an example, which a lot of these like young people do. None of that money is contributing to the Portuguese economy. Like, you'd get paid in American dollars on your American TikTok account, like, or whatever. And you're living, yes, you're paying rent or whatever, but you're not contributing in any way. I would have that thing too. Like back with I've talked about my friend Sue that passed away of cancer. And she lived in Australia for a year, like before she went back to university. And that was always what we talked about, was if we did go to Australia or something like that, that we'd like open a surf shop or a bar, like in Cocktail with the tiki bars on the beach. And when you're 20, that sounds great. But then you're 40 and you're like, okay, that's dumb. But at the same time, the idea of actually building something in the country is not, and should be your forethought when you do make these decisions. Because otherwise, you're just sort of leeching off the kindness of others in another country when your money isn't flowing into that country.
And I wouldn't be going there. My reasons for going there is because like I have a close personal heart tie to that country. I don't really entirely know what it is yet. I don't know. I get off the plane and I touch the pavement and like I'm walking around and it just feels like home. Like driving there felt like I was driving on the highway and I was seeing signs for like Spain and this place and that place. And I was just like, fuck, like this just feels like home. This doesn't look foreign to me. Like,
Yeah.
and just the way, yeah, just the culture. And I like really enjoyed talking with people. So learning Portuguese is really important to me because I want to be able to talk to people like deeply. I want to sit with the dude who's owned his pastry shop for 50 years and have a €150 coffee and not go to a fucking trendy place and talk with him. But I have to go to the trendy place right now because let's face it, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't, I do want to offer something there eventually. So I agree.
I think here, but the fact you've made that first, so putting aside like the Portugal as the entity, you've made a very clear like some very clear life changes just as you are now, knowing that you don't feel the need or want to be surrounded by things. You don't want to be in a place where you feel you have to be there. And you want to be in a place of being quote unquote single so that you're able to make these changes and move around in an easier way. And so I think, like when I said earlier that I already knew this, I didn't mean that in a negatory way. It's just that I always knew that you'd get to this place, but you were what I was like 10 years ago, where you think that you're supposed to want those things and you're supposed to want to be married and have kids and you're supposed to want to be settled. And so it takes a long time because like we're all grown that way, like in whatever capacity. And so it takes a lot of struggle to sort of realize that that isn't your path and doesn't need to be your path. And you don't actually, not only do you not need those things, but you don't actually want those things to be successful. And I think, especially as women, we are sort of ingrained that that's our lot in life. I mean, Jesus Christ, like friggin' NFL kickers are making commencement speeches about you're not a woman unless you're a homemaker or whatever that whole nonsense was. So yeah. Oh, you were in Europe, but
I was too busy fucking being Portuguese.
Yeah. I'm like, this dude, the kicker of the NFL kicker guy made some commencement speech at a university and went like, I mean, there's more to it than that. He went on an it was a homophobic rage. And then he went into this whole thing about how like, and granted, he's at a university commencement. So there's like all the women there have degrees because they're graduating.
Okay. Can I interject for one more second here? This is a reason why I'd want to fucking move to Europe.
Yep.
Just the way Europeans think. The fucking, okay, I'm going to just tell the podcast this because it's fun. While I was in Portugal, I ended up reconnecting with someone that I met 7 years ago when I was still married. He's older. He's twice my age. And we ended up having a fucking wicked little affair while I was there.
European men, man. Yeah.
And we talked about some cool shit in the sense that like we talked about gun control, we talked about porn, we talked about the way people possess each other in marriage and the contract of marriage. And I can't know for sure who this person is because I'm still getting to know them, but all I'm saying is like they don't really like those kinds of things just wouldn't really fucking happen there.
No,
it just wouldn't happen.
No. And I think, we don't need to get into the whole like political landscape of what is happening, not just here, but in the world, like everybody would, but particularly you can see the sort of Christian nationalist white supremacy bullshit that's taking hold in the States is sort of creeping into Canada. And that's why you get all these like yahoos that are on the side of the highway, like mad about whatever. Because what you said at the beginning rings true is that we as North Americans or we should say Turtle Island, realistically, but we are selfish and we are self-absorbed and we are concerned about ourselves and not others. And we take that privileged rage and direct it to people who we think don't belong or whatever. And when you travel, and I'm not going to say Europe is any great bastion of whatever, because
like Europe has its own issues for sure.
But seeing that every day, and like you brought up, like the trucks and the truck nuts and like friggin' dudes and Oakleys and ball hats, and like there's a whole culture here that I don't understand, even though like I live in it on a daily basis. But it feels like on some level, and I truly mean this in the most petty and asshat way possible, but I feel I've outgrown this. I've outgrown Calgary. I've outgrown this mentality and all of that. And I just don't have the patience for it anymore. I don't have patience for the constant need to think that you're better than someone else, the constant like dick swinging competitions, the constant like othering everyone who you think is not you. It seems to be pervasive. And I think Dakota would agree that I have like completely started to like remove myself from so many situations because I can't stand the culture of people that exist here. And so at functions, at events, it all starts to it all starts to just seep in, and you'll hear people having these conversations. You're just like, what is happening? Like, who are all these? Like, I think there is something to be said about the fact that you just don't feel that you or I or whatever. There's just no.
I've never.
There's no inserting ourselves in this anymore because it's just like I don't have the time for it anymore, and I think that's why I have started like I'm not at the point of you. I mean, of like literally like making a full decision, but yeah, I have full authority of myself that this is not my retirement plan. I mean, that like, hello. So whether it's next year or 5 years or whatever, Calgary is not it for me on the journey of my existence either. And yeah, I think it is a sort of come to Jesus moment in that you realize that, yeah, these aren't my people.
And that being said, like we do have our people that are here, like, and I do love.
Well, we have like everyone's got their circle, like you have, but yeah, I'm talking in general are not my people.
I don't think you and I feel like I've always felt like a bit of a black sheep in so many respects in my life, but I've learned to love that about myself.
Yeah, and it's good you get to that point because I think you sort of have to, you do have to create your own people culture. Because you realize you don't fit into the larger people culture.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, I mean, and we've talked about this many times too, why your circle becomes smaller as you get older, because the people that matter the most to you are the only people that get in that circle, because everything else, like you begin to start culling people from your life that aren't serving like what you need.
Or that you can't serve. I actually, I've had a couple of friendships recently that I exited because I couldn't be then again, I'm kind of putting on them what I thought they needed. So maybe that's unfair, but I was also getting messages around like, this isn't serving me, but I love you still. So yeah, like it's hard, right? I mean, I feel like I love a lot of people, but I just don't have the capacity to see them all the time. And I don't know. Yeah, I'm still trying to contend with that too. Because like, I feel like my group is quite large, but I love it. But then I also feel bad. Like I feel bad, honestly, a lot of the time that we don't see each other more. But then I'm also like, why are you feeling bad? Like when you do see Alyssa, it's great. And you guys have your quality time, right? But you're right. When you get older, people come and go. And I think this move will be interesting in the sense that I will see who I stay connected with and who and like, it's not to say that those people still aren't my friends. Like I have a friend in New York that I never really talk to, but she's still a really good friend of mine. And we see each other when we see each other. It's fine. But then I also have had friends like that add literally no value and just like make zero effort with me. And I know they're not even they don't even know what the fuck is going on in my life. And that pisses me off. And so I've told them sorry, this isn't in alignment. Because for many reasons. And so it's interesting. The older you get, it's you get more comfortable with letting shit go. The other thing that I noticed when I was in Europe that was really interesting, and Alyssa, I think you're very much this way too, when you're feeling more like in your power. I think when we're feeling down in the dumps or low, we look to stuff and things and people to lift us up. But when we're really feeling like we know we're in a good place, we know where we're going, and we're just like kind of kicking ass in our own respects and feeling really good about ourselves, I think we come to the realization that actually we don't really have emotional ties to things and people. And as much as we love our people, like I love you and I love my parents and I love my dog and I love lots of things, I think what I've come to is like, I'm actually better at letting shit go than I think. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's probably as a result of some of the loss I experienced when I was younger. Because I know nothing's forever. And I know that we're all going to die alone. Like, sorry if that's depressing, but like there might be people holding your hand when you're dying, but you're still alone. You don't get to take anything with you. So I think the quicker you kind of realize that in a marriage, even, you don't, that person isn't yours. Like you're choosing to commit to that person and be with them. But that commitment shouldn't be, I vow to be with you for the rest of my fucking life. Like that's bullshit. You got to make that decision on the daily.
Yeah.
And like, this is why I have I'm going off on a tangent now, but this is why I have challenges with marriage. It's like, I don't want to possess another person and I don't want them to possess me. I don't want to give 100 of myself to someone. I'll give like as much as I can and I'll do it well. But you're never going to have all of me because I have all of you.
Yeah. And my thing is I don't want to actually, I just don't want to be responsible for another person. It's really my thing. To be perfectly honest, when I made a decision, I didn't want to be married is when I saw my friends' homes, like these like big suburban homes with like the 2-car garage and whatever. And the 2-car garages are all jam-packed with shit that they can't even park their cars in the garage and they're all parked in the driveway because they have all this stuff because like kids apparently need stuff and all these things and whatever. And I'm like, and I like at that moment, I was like, I had like an anxiety attack because I'm like, I cannot envision this as my life. I cannot see this. Like, and I just realized at that moment, I'm like, oh my God, I am not a suburban, like bikes in the driveway and tubs of old school clothes. Like I had a moment of like, no, I have no interest in this. And because I also knew that my friends who are all like educated working women, some were stay-at-home moms, but that's totally whatever. It's totally fine.
We're not shitting over.
They're all 100% responsible for all of that because as great as their husbands may be as people, they're not managing that. They're not managing the shit. They're not managing all the kids' clothes and the kids' appointments. And they're not. I mean, hey, any man can feel free to come on this podcast and tell me that he is 100 or like even 50-50 responsible or even knows his teacher's kid or his kids' teachers' names or any of that, because that's not true. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't want this level of responsibility. Like, no. And I love kids and I would love to be a mom in theory. I always wanted to be a mom in theory. but then you actually see in practicality. And I was like, I do not, I don't want any part of this. I like my freedom. I like my life as it is. And it took a while. It's taken you a while to get to that place too, because again, it's ingrained in us that that's our kind of our responsibility. And because I did want kids.
Like the idea too that the adventure of being a parent would be really cool. And look, if it like happened for either of us at random, I'd be so down.
Oh yeah.
But it's
I know for a fact I would be the best mom ever. Like I would be the ultimate mom, like the best mom.
I'm sure we both fuck up a lot, but we would be pretty good.
But no matter who I married, he could be like the greatest dude, whatever.
Yes.
Still not going to make that experience. I would be a greater mom on my own, I think, than I would in a marriage.
I feel that way too. I don't. Yeah. Oh, the other thing too is like I feel like to me a bigger commitment is having a child with someone.
Oh God, because they're there forever.
Yeah, like
no matter like what happens in your life, that person is always there. Always.
Like I would rather that. And then the opportunity too to like co-parent as friends if it doesn't work out. I would really need the person and I to be on like the same page with each other. But it's funny. I'm someone who does get easily influenced by other people when I'm inspired by them. But I do want to call out this girl that I met before I left to go to Portugal, who lives there now. And then I met up with her in real life in Portugal. But this chick is she blows my mind. She's from Calgary. She's from Alberta. She's Indigenous on both sides of her parents. So she had an interesting childhood. Some of it great, some of it, that's not my story to tell. Regardless, she's kind of had to do a lot of shit on her own. And she's just the coolest person. And she's the coolest person because she's so unabashedly herself that it really helped me come out of my shell. Because I know that everybody in our circle thinks I'm outgoing and confident, but I'm not. I am very insecure a lot of the time in certain respects. But then I can also be someone who's like, go fuck yourself if you don't like me. It depends on the day. I am somebody who, like, for instance, if you put me in a room and you tell me to dance and you're like, hey, part of today is we're going to dance. I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself. I'm never unless I'm dancing of my own volition, I'm not somebody who can be in a room dancing. That scares the shit out of me. If I want to sing, it has to be because I want to sing, not because you told me to go sing. And so one thing I liked about Nikki was she just does her, and her lifestyle that she loves is all she needs is like a giant oversized t-shirt, some tights, and the sun on her face is what she would say. And I trained with her. I did like some like fitness stuff with her. I lived in her husband's presence for 4 days, cooked together, and just the way they lived their life was really inspiring to me. It was really simple, a little too simple for me, and she knows that about me in the sense that like I need like a little bit more of a vibrancy to my life, and I want to be around people. I want to be in a place that's a little more populated. But I loved how like we went to a drum and bass festival and she just like danced like a fucking freak. And I loved it. I was like, you're amazing. Like, you just don't give a shit. You don't give a shit what anyone thinks about you. And like, that's Europe to me. Nobody gives a shit. They just do them, whether they're sitting on a patio, like tending to their tomatoes, or starting a fucking brilliant company in the middle of Lisbon and, just killing it. Europeans, I feel like they just do their fucking thing. And that's why the rest of the world is really inspired by them. North Americans, I feel like we need to have 5 omnipotent figures at any given time that we worship. And we have to be like everybody else and roll with whatever crowd that we think is the coolest. And so I think moving forward, I want to continue to march the beat of my own drum, which I've always been pretty good at. But I want to get better at just being me, being happy, smiling more, laughing more, not feeling constrained to the ideals and things that other people want of me.
Yeah, I think the other thing about European life too is that it's slower. It's so much slower. Like, I mean, you think of like late dinners in France because they meander for the afternoons, and it's like we just have we've set a weird pace in North America because we're always needing to get to the next thing, and we need to make the next dollar, and we need to do the next this, and that we exist in this constant treadmill of trying to keep up with everything. And that is the one thing that I love about Europe too, is that they just enjoy everything. And that's why it's like long dinners and being like with your friends and just taking like, and no one's rushing to the office for 8 a.m. Like that just does not happen in Europe. Like if they stroll in at 9:30, then whatever.
Everything's slower. You have to be patient. It will take like months to get a car.
It's just a different, they're just not, I mean, it's not driven by stuff like it is here. It's much more driven by community there. But as we wrap this up, I just want
lots of rambles.
No, I think it's cool. I think maybe we'll do this as a part 2, but I think now that you've sort of come to this life-changing realization, how now does that shift for Social Centric? And I think in part 2, we'll talk about the shifts that we see our careers going and what that means over the next few years. And
exciting, like the content and the learnings that'll come out of this. For you guys, our listeners. Like I'm really jacked to share my journey, and Alyssa is probably very excited to share her journey, whatever that may be as well. And who knows, maybe I can convince Alyssa. I know she has parents here that she needs to look after, but that doesn't mean that if I make this jump, she doesn't come live with me for 3 months.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's the whole point of having these bigger discussions and seeing and supporting your friends and their decisions, because it allows you to have places to go elsewhere in the world, that you can create community elsewhere when your friends go elsewhere. And I just think thinking bigger than what you're sitting in currently is so much more effective than getting wrapped up in the day-to-day stressors, because we're all in the day-to-day stressors every day, whether you work for yourself or your corporate, or you own a house or don't own a house or whatever. Like everyone's in different parts of their existence, but every day is stressful. And so sometimes it's nice to be able to think bigger about how you can make your life less stressful by making bigger decisions about what things mean to you or don't mean. Anyway, I think that I love talking about big life decisions, and I love it when people come back from very life-affirming vacations, so to speak, and look at things differently. I think that's a big, big part of being a good human. And so I'm glad that Dakota had her moment to have that realization.
She knew this was going to happen.
Yeah. But yeah, as I said, we'll reconvene this conversation in another episode as we sort of move forward, and especially from a business perspective and what this all means. But otherwise, so glad to have Dakota back in my sphere this morning, and what that like I always feel better when she's on the continent or down the street. So that matters to me.
I cry more than I normally do now, so stop.
Yeah, anyway. So tune in for the next episode, and have a great week or day or month or whatever, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Ladies Who Launch. Join Dakota and Alyssa every second Wednesday for more conversations and interesting guests. Be sure to give us a 5-star rating and connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. If you send us a question, we may answer it on a future episode.